Okay, wow. I'm so glad we had the opportunity to read this article this week because improvisation is probably the most daunting thing for me as far as the music world, and especially music therapy. Um, so I just want to go to straight to the article and talk about what I thought was most interesting. Um, I had a little bit of a difficult time following it at first. But then when I got to like the discussion where people just kind of put their um, thoughts on paper about the experience, because I think it's so hard to like verbalize what happens um, during these improv sessions, and so I loved what some of these individuals talked about. Um, so so they talk a little bit about comfort, about when you first start these improvisations, there's a little bit of that discomfort. Sorry, because you have such a desire to be involved and to add, but you're also just really just like there's that nervousness of okay, what should I contribute? What would be good? And then you kind of have to read. I really like especially how it said you have to learn each other, which is really interesting. You have to kind of assess like the whole environment together. Um, you like it said, like you take turns, you exchange roles, you sometimes you play the same thing, sometimes you move a little bit away. I think that's really interesting to kind of get to know the other person musically. And then I guess just the idea of this sounds really big challenge, especially for like Western and Eastern music, because those are so different, and so I know that I would be so intimidated to put in, what I know, and just be like, oh, how does this go together? Um, and then on to some of the other questions with my own personal experience. I honestly can say that I didn't really have any experience with improv until I came to Utah State, because I guess I didn't allow myself to do that. I was very much an on the page musician. Um, I I very much wanted it to be right, and I really relied on music. Um, it was even just hard for me to memorize something, because I was like, oh, I need the music here to like, check, make sure I'm playing the right thing. Um, dynamics, articulation, style, like all of that for me was in the music. And it wasn't really until I started music therapy um, it wasn't really until then that I was able to be like, oh, there's more than what's just on the page. And that was really interesting to me, and that's something that I think drew me to music therapy, because I think part of me really wanted that. Part of me really wanted to go away from that like sense of like this has to be perfect and this has to be right. And I really just wanted to explore like, okay, how does this make me feel, and what does this do for me, and what does this do for other people? And so I think that's what really drew me to music therapy. But then there's that area of improv that just like, it just makes me so nervous, I think, because my mind goes back to that of like, is this right? Is it going to be good? For example, I met with, last week, when I met with my individual for the assessment client, or for the assessment, um, she had started to play her violin, and I was like, oh, this would be such a good time to like throw in some lyrics, throw in some words, and I couldn't. Like, I just like wouldn't. Um, my mind just went blank, because I was so afraid to mess up, and I was so afraid to, I guess, include something that wasn't right. I think especially with lyrics, I can do a little bit better instrumentally, but lyrically, my mind immediately goes to, okay, it has to rhyme, it has to, the flow has to be there, and that just like is too much for me to think about in one moment. And so I think that's something that I really want to improve upon. And I think clinically it's been really, really neat for me to try this and say like, oh, this is really cool. Like when I do improv and I just kind of let go of like that need to be right and have it be perfect, then excuse me, I'm sorry. I feel really empowered, especially when we're talking about, you know, empowerment through improvisation in group ensemble, group music therapy. That was really neat for me because that class in general was just very daunting to me. But as we did it, I loved it, and I loved that time to just like sit at the drum and like play something, and like have that part of me be expressed. So that was really neat. Yeah, so I look forward to that this week in the song share to just practice those skills and to really lean into that and improve that for myself.